There we are. Okay, so just to recap very briefly, we're looking at different things that one might find and care for. So Sforim, that's Torah scrolls, you read or roll every 30 days, but you can't learn from them for the first time, and somebody else can't read it with you. If you find a garment, you shake it out every 30 days and spread it out for whatever it needs, but not for your own purposes. You can use silver and copper vessels as much as you need in order to keep them in good condition, but you can't use them in such a way that wears them out. Gold and glass vessels you don't touch at all. And if you find something like a box or a bag that it is beneath your dignity to carry, you don't need to carry it. And it's talking specifically about you can't learn from it for the first time. No, you can read it. Right, but yeah, no, but I'm sorry. The first time that you're learning this. So Ramban touches on your question, quoted by the Rashba. We might come to that later. What we're talking about here is where you're looking at something for the first time. You're learning something that you've not learned before. You want to learn it in this sefer. That you can't do. But if it's something that you have learned before, you just want to revise it, that's okay. That's the point. Not quite. But you're close. Okay, let's look at the Gemara. Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel says, if somebody finds tefillin in the marketplace, they're just sitting there. You work out how much they cost, you put that value to one side, and you can use the tefillin immediately. Not that you have to, but you can. Maybe you haven't. Well, maybe you lost them. Somebody stole them. You haven't got around to getting them. You've not been able to get a pair. Whatever. I don't know, some reason or other. But now, pair of tefillin. Nice one. Thank you very much. Do I have to put them in a drawer? Or can I use them? So the answer is, you can use them, but you put the money to one side. A bit like with the goose that we had last week. The famous goose. Okay. So, can you see a problem from that to our Mishnah? If you find tefillin, you put the money aside, you can use it straight off. Right, so what's the deal with the Sforim? Pray tell, just remind me. Oh, does it? So tell me the question. What's the contradiction? What's the contradiction? So when it comes to tefillin, what can I do?
Go to the marketplace.
Right. But when it comes to Sefer Torah, right. What's the difference?
One's ready available.
Wow.
One is
one
you can get in the marketplace. You can't buy the Sefer Torah in the marketplace.
In one. Can I know how? So Colin says, well, let me ask you a question. So imagine we're on The Apprentice, okay? And Alan Sugar says, go and buy me a pair of tefillin. Now. How long would it take you? Assuming where we are in Edgeware now, how soon could you be back here with a brand new pair of tefillin? Right, so how long?
Half an hour.
Half an hour. An hour. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Colin, as you go down the bottom of Edgeware Lane, watch out for Prutos and smoked salmon. Okay, the place is lit.
Absolutely, it's still there. Dropped it.
So what's your step? All right.
I haven't given up hope.
Very good. However, when it comes to a Sefer Torah, you want to get a brand new Sefer Torah, it takes you a year or 2 years. You've got to find a Sefer, you've got to arrange a price. It takes forever to write it. You've got to get the accoutrements for it. It's a massive operation. You can't just whistle of a Sefer Torah, stuff like that. So if somebody has a Sefer Torah and they've lost it, they don't want the money. They want that Sefer Torah back. Because I need it. You know what? You want me to do? So I lose it and I come back after 3 days and you've kindly appropriated it for yourself and given me the money. I don't want the money. It's going to take me a year to get another one. But tefillin, easy. So you know what? Actually, the rabbis say, you take his tefillin and put them on, And you know what? He'll get another pen in half an hour. You'll give him the money for it. He'll go take the money, divot, go there, and you're sorted. That's the difference. That's the answer to David's question. There you go. So let's look at inside now. Mosiv Ravina. So Ravina asked the question, Matzos Sforim, if somebody finds Sefer Torah, you read it every 30 days. And if you can't read it, then you roll it. Goylelon in, rolling them, yes. Some demechin umanichan lie. But putting the money aside and using it, no, you can't do that. Amar Abaye says, Tefillin be'barchavim maskash kichin. Tefillin you can get in any old place, easy. They're on every street corner. Sfarim lo shchichi. The whole Sefer Torah. That's a rare visit. And you can see when somebody buys a Sefer Torah, it's a massive event in the community. Buying your pair tefillin, nobody notices. Hardly. They say, oh, they're very much shiny. Absolutely. Not like a Sefer Torah. Not like a Sefer Torah, no. But I think the point is that tefillin are much more urgently needed. I mean, imagine, for example, if you went on holiday and realized you left your tefillin at home and there's no way, you had to go back because you got a chiyuv in the Torah to put your tefillin on every, obviously not on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but every other day you can go on. So if you're halfway down the M5 and you realize, oh my gosh, I left my tefillin at home, you turn around and you go again. Well, if there are where you get there, perhaps, but the Mishnah Berurah actually warns against it. He says, you get some people that are traveling, they say, you know what, I'll be going from shul to shul, especially back in the hymn, that's how it was. So, when I'm in shul, I'll borrow some of the tefillin, whatever. He says you shouldn't do that, because when it comes to the head tefillin, it has to fit. And if the head tefillin, it's got somebody else's head, it's a different size and shape to yours, probably. You're right, because otherwise you won't do it at all. But it's something that I'm acute. Well, it's better than nothing, but it's not brilliant. It isn't brilliant. You got a problem.
What about
cool Chabad? Yeah, or you need to get a pair of tefillin pronto. It may be quicker to get them FedExed out to you than to actually fly back and get them. I don't know, but you've got a chiyuv in a Torah.
What about whilst I'm in the shul and I'm looking for?
Sorry, Colin, just bear with me a second. I've got reverence.
I can't hear you. I can't hear.
Yeah, it's fine. It's very hard because you can't undo a lack. I mean, unless it's force majeure. And if somebody, Rahman Islam is in a coma for 6 weeks in hospital, and throughout the 6 weeks they don't put on it, then they can't help. Yeah, you got a problem. So oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, a not dissimilar thing happened to us a few years back. We were going to Plymouth, and it was going to be in Elul, and we realized halfway down we didn't have a chauffeur. So I called to blow in a shofar. A shofar. So I called ahead to the caretaker in Plymouth, a very knowledgeable guy, not just very knowledgeable, and he said that they had shofars in the shul which I could use. I found out subsequently, in fact, I need to worry because, strictly speaking, the obligation to hear shofar and Elul is only in a minyan, and because there's not a minyan in Plymouth, there's no need at all. So it's fine. However, with tefillin, as I say, it's a different matter. Even talis, if you get a talis, it's not such a big deal because you're not obliged by Torah law to wear 6 years every day. The Torah law says if you wear a four-corner garment, make sure it has a tzitzis on each corner. So if you don't wear a four-corner garment, it's not brilliant. It's not good to say Shema without tzitzis on, but we can live with that. But tefillin, you got a problem. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's not so tough. Yeah. Okay, Colin, I'm with yours.
But on the other hand, I nip into the shul and I say, Rabbi, you know what? I'd like to borrow a Sefer Torah. I'm forgetting to fill in for a second. Or let's go back to the Stiebels. Every other house was at a Stiebel, back in the day. And I'm going to go to someone else. So I'd like to borrow a Sefer Torah. So I guess in those terms, they were readily accessible, right? Maybe not as accessible, obviously, as to fill in, but they were accessible rather than having to build your own one. Sorry, make your own one with all the parts. So what if I said, Rabbi, I'd like to borrow it? Then you say, what for? And I explain it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it's slightly different because so you're saying perhaps then that, correct me if I'm wrong, in as much as you can easily borrow a Sefer Torah, why should it be so bad if you sell it and keep that? If you take it for yourself and put the money to one side, because he can have a Sefer Torah to borrow in the meantime while he's commissioning a new one to be written.
Yes,
but I don't think people want to borrow a Sefer Torah. It's a bother. You're responsible in all sorts of ways. If anything goes wrong, you're going to have trouble with it. There may be T's and C's attached to its use. I want my Sefer Torah. Whereas with tefillin, you won't. You can buy them readily. So the thing is that if you want to get to where you were before you lost this thing, with tefillin it's easy, even if you put the money to one side. With a Sefer Torah, yes, perhaps you can borrow one, but it's not the same as having your own. And clearly the Gemara or the Mishnah sees that.
And you'd have to get past Jeremy as well, so that wouldn't work.
And the office, and in synagogue in Shores.
Exactly.
Yeah. In fact, nowadays, when there's a shiva, people more often than not use the misaskim Sefer Torah because they are very small. They're purpose built for shivas. But to get one from the United Synagogue, and no disrespect to them, it needs to join. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. But I think they're now more alive to theft and risk than they used to be. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And in fact, as I was at this shiva a couple of days ago. That's when I disappeared for Shacharis a couple of days ago. I went to shiva literally across the road from us. I was in Lane, and this tiny little Sfardi one, is like that, huh? But hey, whatever. Okay, all right. Sorry. No, the family, Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, turn up on. So here we go. Now we're gonna touch on Colin's point now. Turn up on. Hashal Sefer Torah mechavera. So we've got a brisa which says, if somebody borrows a Sefer Torah from his friend, you can't then lend it on to somebody else. That's not the deal. I'm prepared to trust you with my Sefer Torah, not prepared to trust your mates. Okay, so with which is fine, but we're assuming that all we know is I borrowed it from him. He's now gone off on a holiday. No, you can't just lend it on. Yeah, correct. You can open it and read it, but you're not allowed to learn something for the first time in it. And another person is not allowed to read it with you. If somebody deposits a Sefer Torah with their friend for safekeeping, David, well, may you look puzzled. Well, this is a coach and horses to what we just learned. Everything's wrong. Everything. Yeah, good. Yeah. That's also good. You have to roll it every 12 months. You can open it and read it. In also. But if you open it for yourself, it's not allowed. Sumcha says, with a new one every 30 days, with an old one every 12 months. In both cases, new and old is every 12 months. Well, you can't. Right. So the point is that it's not about the safe time, it's about your learning. So if you want to look at something you've never learned before, you can't do that in a safe time. Right. So you said for the first time. Yeah, you're learning this thing for the first time. You want to use a safer Torah to do that. That you can't do. If you've learned it before. So I want
What's
to
the
read
definition of learning?
Genesis 1:1.
What's the definition of learning? Because if I sit in shul,
So Reverend, just a second. Colin got in there. So Colin, I'm with you.
What's the definition of learning and reading? Because I read it, all the time from a book. So am I learning? I don't know to a degree. But what's the definition then? I'm learning it or I'm reading it. If I read it every Shabbos and I go through it and I'm not really learning it, although I read its meanings in English, so I learn it. But I wouldn't remember it. I wouldn't really call it learning. Do you know what I mean? So what is Torah learning and what is reading? There's got to be a defined...
You're right. You're right. And this, you're back in the Ramban, which I don't want to get onto yet, but you're right. He makes that point as well. I must say welcome to Alan. Alan, welcome, my friend.
Welcome, Alan.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you all.
Hello. Good to have you too. Okay. So we're now going to...
Because I wouldn't say that I'm learning Torah on Shabbos. I'm reading it and I'm seeing the different translations and I'm looking in and I am reading it in English and understanding it. Am I learning it? That's my question, really.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm not going to tell you that yet, but please don't get too soon. Okay, it's a good point. It's relevant. Okay, good. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Now then, so this brisa undoes almost everything we've learned in the Mishnah. So the Gemara is going to say, yeah, I know. That's why I'm raising this to find out if we can reconcile these two. Omar, so mar means Mr. My Lord. It's saying this brisa is a respectful term. Hashel sefer Torah mechavere. If you borrow sefer Torah from somebody else, from somebody, you're not allowed to lend it to somebody else. So the Gemara says, my area sefer Torah. What do you mean sefer Torah? I feel a kol milinami, anything. Never mind about sefer Torah. You can't. If somebody lends you a spade, a car, you can't just lend it on. It's not the deal. The Amar of Shem the Lachish, Rabbi Shem Lachish says, "Can Shana Rebbe here? Rebbe taught, Ein Asher Rashay Lahashil, a borrower may not lend, Vein Aseichen Rashay Lahaskil, and somebody who hires something may not then rent it out. You can't lease it. If you hire a car, you can't then sublet, unless, of course, as you say, if there's permission, then fine. But we're talking all these being equal. You won't mind. Well, if anything goes pear-shaped, the base will have to assess whether it was implicit in the loan that the lender was prepared to have it lent on. Right. Depends on how well. So, for example, let's say on 10 previous occasions, I lent something to you and I had given you permission to lend it to him. So then maybe the base will say it's implicit, it's assumed, it's understood that that's what's going to happen. Depends. But the thing is, we're talking here, these cases set up with minimal knowledge, so the base have nothing else to work on. So yes, if you know that, then great. But what if we don't? That's what these cases are dealing with. It's precisely that. So we're reducing it to the absolute minimum so that we can see the halacha in action. Okay, right. So the Gemara answers, Sefer Torah, it's strichale. The fact that it's a Sefer Torah meant that we had to reiterate this rule about not lending it on. Because I might have thought when you borrow Sefer Torah, you can lend it on. Specifically in Sefer Torah. That's my next question. Why would you think that? Why would you think that if I lend you my car, I don't want it lent on, but if I lend you my Sefer Torah, I don't mind. That's cool.
Because the Sefer Torah is of advantage to the whole community.
So is my car. You can drive here and there everywhere with it.
You can't get a parking ticket with the Sefer Torah.
Sorry, we're service in the middle. I'll be right with you, Colin. Sorry.
No, I'm just.
To say.
I can use it, but for a good purpose.
Right.
Okay, your car may take me from Edgware to Hendon or something very, very nice. That needs to be, I mean, it's good. But this has got almost carbon.
It's an eternal thing. Yeah. So Colin, what were you going to say?
No, that's why I was just going to say you can't get a parking ticket with the Safer Torah. That's why I can't lend it.
That's a clamp it. So the deal is like this. When it comes to lending out a Sefer Torah, I would have thought maybe then the lender is okay with it. Why? Because even though he knows nothing about it, and even though he didn't anticipate his Sefer Torah being lent out, maybe we'd assume that, yeah, of course, he's happy to have his Sefer Torah lent out for a mitzvah. Of course. So let's say things go wrong. You know, I lend you my Sefer Torah, you borrow it, take it to shul, and as has happened, there's a Bava Metsia we're laying from it, he's a bit thirsty, a bit dry, so he has a drink, he spills the water on the Sefer Torah, and all of a sudden, you know, it's ash and blotter. So in such a situation, you know, it comes to basting. I now need 2 columns of my Sefer Torah, need rewriting, that's a lot of work, a lot, you know, it took £700 for that, probably 1,000. And I'm saying, well, you know, I didn't give permission for my Sefer Torah to lend to the shul. Therefore, you're responsible. So you pay the money. But you say, no, it's implicit when somebody lends out a Sefer Torah that they're happy to lend out to a mitzvah. So you implicitly gave consent. Therefore, it's your risk, it's your responsibility, and therefore the owner of the Sefer Torah will have to make good this damage.
Did that same principle apply, which does happen, but typically the Sefer Torah is lent out? Being read and they found a mistake.
No, because that's the advantage of the owner. They can get it put right. Or yeah, so you can't claim that. So the answer is that the Brisa tells us that even though it's a mitzvah thing to lend out a Sefer Torah, it is not assumed that the owner is happy for it to be lent on. The lenders happy for it to be lent on. Therefore, if you borrow a Sefer Torah for somebody, you can't use mitzvah as a justification. You can't. That's why this Brisa has to mention Sefer Torah explicitly. It goes out its way to include this case in the prohibition of lending things on without the original lender's permission. Fine. Good. Okay. Tomash Manon say teaches that's not the case. So then the Gemara quotes another bit of the second Brisa. Says that you can open the thing and read it. Shita. He says that, if you borrow a Sefer Torah, you're allowed to open it and read from it. Well, why do you think I borrowed the thing? I didn't borrow it to curl my hair. I borrowed it to read it. So obviously you can read it. Why is the Brisa telling this? So the Gemara answers, there's a reason. Sefer it's trichade. Yeah, that we get, but it's the next bit that it needs. You're going too quick. Here we go again. You're not allowed to learn something in it for the first time. That's the thing. So yes, when you borrow Sefer Torah, you are allowed to read it. And this is Colin's point as well. You're allowed to read it, but you're not allowed to learn it for the first time. So what's the difference? So here it is. Or maybe you could come on, you tell me, what's the difference?
Reading it is I'm following it and reading it, but I'm not learning it as such. I'm just reading it continuously. Learning it would mean stopping, analyzing, and learning exactly what it's meaning.
So why can't you do that? Why can't I do that for the first time in a borrowed Sefer Torah?
I don't know.
You do.
No idea.
Having me on. Come on. Think. Come on, you're a clever fella. Come on, you can do this. Why can you just read something you read many times before? Back in the day, that's what they did do. They didn't have anything else. That was it. But some people a legend has it that in Sephardic communities, that's right, they would gather around the Rebbe the Rav to read the Chacham to learn how to read Hebrew. They gathered around a Sefer Torah, and the boys who were sitting opposite the Chacham would learn to read Hebrew backwards and left to right, upside down, left because they saw it upside down. So when his finger went like that, they saw it. Well, I see it right to left. You see it left to right. Yeah, they learned it upside down and left to right. That's how they learned the Hebrew.
I can't, you fail to see the logic in the fact that you can't do it.
Okay. So I'll tell you.
I mean, I do say that every time I read it, I am learning. But it is for the first. But does that mean? I mean, I know that. That's the fact. I am learning every time I read it. So
Okay.
that's all I can.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I think maybe we're overthinking it. It's really simple. When you learn something, when you see something you've seen many times, oh yeah, it's not. So I read through it and I go, if I'm learning for the first time, oh, what's this? And I open it and that's interesting. So I'll just have a ponder and have a sneeze and a cough and a cup of tea. And I'm stopping and thinking, I'll pull it this way and that. And I'll use the thing a lot more because I'm pondering it, I'm thinking about it, I'm spending time with it. And I'll stop and look at Reverend Levin's Gemara. It's worn, isn't it? Because you've got an old Gemara there. It's been used many times, Kanai Nahara. Look at the spine of your Gemara there. It's worn. Baruch Hashem, it's worn. That's how it should look. Exactly. When you learn for the first time, you think about it, you're getting pshat. You come across new insights I hadn't thought of before. Oh, how will this match with other things? I'll look back and then I'll look here again. And you're wearing it out.
It's all. It's also your mindset at the time that you're reading it, or you're learning it, or you're standing there praying. We've spoken about this before, Rabbi, when you were saying there was certain mornings, let's say if your mind is elsewhere, where you're saying the words, but actually you're not actually taking them in to such depth. And there are some times when you're there, when you're literally completely immersed in the whole experience.
Yeah.
So
it's that
your
one.
mindset and where you are.
Yeah, and look at us. Look at how long we spend on a few lines of Gemara we've not learned before. And just before, when I revised this Mishnah that we'd already learned through once, we went through like much quicker. So the Sefer Torah gets much more exposure to when something's being learned from it for the first time. And when somebody learns the Sefer Torah, they're not prepared to do that. Well, there you go. How about that? How about it? Could be more timely. There you go. Okay. So that's the point. V'chein, and then the Brisa continues. If somebody deposits the Sefer Torah with somebody else, they have to roll it every 12 months, and they can open it and read it. What's he doing with it? And furthermore, in Bishvile Psacha also, if it says later that if he read it for himself, then that's not allowed. You just said he can read it, so it makes no sense at all. So the Gemara said, "Don't worry, it's fine. I've got this one." Thus he says, if while he's rolling it, he opens it and reads it. And then this is Colin's point again. When he reads it, it's just an odd puzzle. Oh, I remember that puzzle. That's my this is oh my goodness. And he said, oh yeah, and then he carries straight on. So that's Colin's reading. But in Bishvilai Psachai, but if you open it entirely for himself, and he opens it in order to read it for himself and to do what called proper learning, you can't do it. So there's analysis, right? So if you analyze, yeah. And goodness knows that there's enough in every word of Torah, as we've seen. To ponder for a very long time. There's so much to it. Right. Simchas Omer b'chodash 30 yom b'yoshes name chodesh. For a new one, it's 30 days, and for an old one, it's 12 months. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, "Echazem echazesh name chodesh." In both cases, it's 12 months. So the Gemara asks, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, how many times come? That's what the first opinion of Brisa says. Elo Ema, you said you're right. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Ema echazem echazesh 30 yom. This and that are 30 days, not 12 months. So fine. So there's a dispute in the Brisa there, and that's fine. We're allowed that. Now I must come on to this Ramban because I did promise it you. What if you lend somebody Gemara? And the Ramban says back in the day, people knew Gemara off by heart. That's just how you learnt it. But people never couldn't do it properly. They had to actually write it down. It's terribly sad, but that's how we've sunk. So now it's written down, and somebody wants to borrow somebody else's Gemara. And remember, back in the day, these were precious manuscripts there. They were priceless. It's so precious. So if I borrow your Gemara, can I learn from it for the first time?
Yes,
Oh, pray tell, why?
because the owner will want you to do that. Because what is the purpose of having this Gemara if not to learn from it? So why would the owner say, no, you can't do that?
Well, why do you do it with the Sefer Torah?
The Sefer Torah is the communal property, this is personal.
Back in the day, it wasn't like that.
I'm not that old.
But you're so close. You're so close. What's the difference between a Sefer Torah and a Gemara? Learn from a Sefer Torah and learn from a Gemara. Why is it that anybody can learn from a Gemara for the first time, but not a Sefer Torah? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Monetary value? Does it have anything to do with monetary value?
No. They're worth about the same. So I'll tell you, when I lend you a Sefer Torah, how much can you learn from a Sefer Torah? A bit, but it's legit to just read through it and whatever, and you can read it very simply. Fine, so I'll let you do that, but I'm not going to give it to you for more than that. But Gemara, the only way to learn Gemara is in depth. You can't learn it any other way at all. Gemara has to be deep. And even if you learned it 100 times before, says the Ramban, you're going to learn it in great depth because it always, as we see, my goodness me, you can't learn it at all unless you dig into it and understand exactly like we're doing now. So the Ramban says, if anybody lends anybody else a Gemara, it is assumed that they're lending it for intensive learning because there's no other way to learn it at all.
Rabbi, you could argue in the Sefer Torah is the pure words of Hashem. The Gemara and the Mishnah Talmud are man's interpretation of the words of Hashem. So you could argue on the other side of it that the pure words, you would learn a huge amount more by going direct than going through rabbis and disciples.
Well, so I need to tell you an astonishing story. It's a Gemara in Bava Metsia. Later on, our Gemara talks about this, about which is more authoritative, the word of the Sefer Torah, the word of God, or the word of man. And there's a famous story about an argument about an oven, whether a particular oven can become Tommy, ritually impure or not. And there's one rabbi against everybody else. And this one rabbi, I can't remember what it was now, this one rabbi says, if I'm right, let this river flow uphill. And it does. It did. If I'm right, let this cow tree bear figs. And it did.